Alpha Team is flying around the forest zone, situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we are searching for the helicopter of our compatriots, Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of their mission.
Haven't found it yet?
No, not yet, Brad. Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently eaten. The Bravo Team was sent in to investigate, but we lost contact.
Look, Chris!
Bravo Team's helicopter was a derelict. Save for the remaining body of Kevin. We continued our search for the other members, and it turned into a nightmare.
This way. Damn it! Make for that mansion!
Welcome to Resident Evil HD Remaster, once again, hard mode.
There are only 3 STARS members left now. Captain Wesker, Jill, and myself. We don't know where Barry is.
Is everyone all right?
Barry? Where's Barry?
He's...
No. What was that?
I'll go and check it out.
All right. Jill and I will stay and secure this area.
Chris? Take care.
Yeah.
So the first thing you're going to see is the ink ribbon on the table. Do not pick it up. If you're new to Resident Evil, at least the classic REs, one of the biggest things that's going to prevent you from progressing is really the beginning in general. The beginnings for most of the classic Resident Evils are extremely difficult. Because you're greatly limited on healing items and ammo. So what you want to do is go to the Kenneth's body, trigger the cutscene, and then come right back to the hall. big flaw that's going to happen is that the game really punishes you.
Wesker? Jill? Where did they go?
Pick up the handgun and then go straight back to where you need to go before. One of the biggest difficulties with new players here is that the game really punishes you for sequencing incorrectly. As in, if you revisit certain areas in order to get back to certain things, you can end up causing yourself a whole lot of mess. And this is something that we're going to avoid with this walkthrough. Avoid that emblem. You do not want to pick that up right now. That's needed for later. I would say that this guide has a good sequence, but pretty sloppy execution. So hopefully you'll avoid some of the issues that I run into, but I think the routing is fairly good. Not speedrunning, but this is good enough for a commoner. You want to pick up this green herb if you need to. There will be ammo in normal or easier modes right there on the birdcage, but this is hard mode, so that pickup is not available. I am playing with the alternate control layout. I think it's a bit easier. It's a bit forgiving with the turning rather than the traditional tank controls, but to each his own. This hallway is particularly difficult. This grab for this zombie can be really difficult. It can get you straight away. But you want to run, get the arrow. You'll notice after you get the arrow that there's handgun ammo at the bottom. I usually get it before the zombie comes at me, but what you want to do is eventually be able to get him to lunge and then run around him. Just so you're aware, this is one of the hardest areas in the game, and it's right at the start. So don't feel bad if you die there or get bitten. It's just difficult. So usually there's a zombie in this section. However, because we're on once again, there is no zombie here, and what we're gonna end up doing is just pushing down the statue to get the gem in order to eventually get the shotgun shells later on, because at a certain point, force is going to spawn here, and that'll just make things a lot more difficult in order to just get the statue. So there's several routes that you could potentially take for this graveyard sequence. One of the things you're going to notice is that while zombies are really hard on the ground, they are unable to grab you on the stairs. So we're going to be using that tactic quite a bit in order to make our lives a lot easier and survive the mansion. So what you want to do is have this guy come up, and when you see his gait change to something like a bit more like unsteady, a bit more drunken, then you want to go down, because then the only thing he can do is vomit on you. Want to stay close to the right side of the gate, because that will not trigger the zombie in the graveyard. And then what I end up doing here is I kind of run back while the door is opening and kind of just mess with him a bit. It's not necessarily necessary, but eventually he's going to come down that path, and that's where things can get very difficult, especially if you're doing something like a damage run. If you're new to Resident Evil, especially the classic ones, you'll notice that there's the ability to examine items. This is a way of just getting new items or opening up opportunities for different things that you pick up that may not seem useful. So this part can be a bit tricky depending on where he is. Because he's in front of that camera angle, I didn't feel confident going for a lunge dodge, so what I end up doing is kind of just camping out here on the stairs. And I'm kind of waiting for his arms to come in at the bottom of the angle here, and they'll signify me that he's come all the way to the entrance. Now, these stairs are a bit interesting. There's actually an invisible wall for enemies, and that's because this is actually a boss area. The boss is down there in that coffin. We'll get to him later, but that's what I tend to do, is I usually wait for him to come, and then he kind of gets tripped up by the boundaries of where he can move, and then I can slip around him. Other than that, you could tank the hit. It is a bit easier in Resident Evil games to tank damage rather than waste your ammo. But we really need to save our ammo for the dog whistle portion that comes up next. So as Chris, you're going to need to get these old keys. And because Jill has the lockpick, she has a bit of an easier sequence in terms of getting around the mansion. But we have to come back to the Kenneth hallway, which is what we refer to as the area where we found the first cutscene where Kenneth's body lays. Now, I end up letting this guy live for, I think, a bit too long. As you can see, I'm having trouble just initiating his lunge sequence. I'm using the D-pad to kind of alternate between the alternate control layout and the tank control. I find that the tank controls are a bit easier for dodging, while the overall alternate controls are just easier for mobility and navigation. But what you need to do is go down here and use the mansion key there. Now, using the mansion key there is nice because when you use it on the other doors, you'll eventually be able to discard it. However, one of the old keys is optional, but we're going to be this is a 100% playthrough where we're going to get the Magnum and we're going to get the best ending. So we're going to get all the old keys. So hug the side of the table that's farthest away from the camera. You can see that there's a guy kind of army crawling away and this other guy that came down the stairs. What you want to do is try to run past him on either side. Depending on where his angle is, he could grab you or he could not. I just got, unfortunately, grabbed there, and it's just really annoying. So approaching zombies from behind is actually not too bad. As long as you go really fast past their shoulder, they will be unable to grab you. As you can see, he turns in my direction, but he's unable to impede my progress as I go right past him. So now we're finally going to go through the doors on the right. I ended up using a healing item here just to make sure that have any more damage. I don't want to get a caution or danger caution. There are 4 levels of health in this game. There's fine, caution, orange caution, danger. In addition, there is poison. This can happen from some of the notorious enemies that you'll encounter later in the game, such as the giant arachnids. What you need in order to be able to heal yourself from poison is a blue herb. So like most of the stuff in the beginning portion of the game, this dagger is pretty much a red herring. As soon as you grab it, you're going to spawn an enemy. I was trying to make him lunge for me, but unfortunately he grabbed me and I used the defense item. I think it's meant to be a bit of a tutorial on how to use defense items, but it just kind of feels like you got cheated because you just lose it right away. However, there is hope. Down this hallway, if you push the cabinet on the left-hand side, you'll uncover another defense dagger. Worth noting that if you go around the corner, the second chest there, if you push it in normal or in easier mode, you'll be able to find another handgun ammo. This room is optional as Jill, but as Chris, it's required that you get the old key. Unlike Jill, he is not able to automatically kill the zombie that spawns here. So in this area, you'll find 2 green herbs, a red herb, and this chemical. Unfortunately, with Chris's item slot, you can only pick up the chemical. And it kind of is a tease because if you ever need to come back to this area for those healing items, the dogs will jump the fence. Again, making things much more difficult. That guy is set to launch out of that doorway. It's the first opportunity that you'll see that zombies can move around to different rooms. There are caps on how many zombies can be in a room, but generally only certain ones. I was a bit too aggressive here and got grabbed. This zombie this zombie in particular has a very high decapitation rate, and as Chris, you do get a higher decapitation chance. What you want to do is come in here and drop off the knife or whatever their second inventory slot is, and then drop off the fertilizer as well. I usually drop off the fuel canteen. We are going to be taking advantage of the fact that this is not real survival mode and that the item boxes do transfer across different locations. So luckily that corner can help assist you in dodging that zombie just by staying there a bit. When you come into this door, what you want to do is kind of hold still for a moment. His tracking is going to go slightly towards the door, and that's going to allow you to move around on the left-hand side. If you go too fast, he will be able to grab you, or you can just be extremely savvy and use one of the tank control dodges. Take the dog whistle here. We're going to end up summoning some dogs. Grab the handgun magazine. This is the second one that you're able to get through in this playthrough. And I tend to go out this way instead of the other way, just to go right back into the hallway. So this is a blind corner, and depending on where that guy is, he can either grab you right away, or he could be farther down the hall, which is where you saw it there. I got very fortunate that he spawned later down the hall, but it is possible to run straight smack dab into him from that angle, and that's just extremely unfortunate when that happens. So you can kind of hear some rustling of chains, and this is the first time we're going to encounter Forrest. He is a zombie that will follow you through the beginning portion of the game. He runs very fast. He also lunges like a madman. It's kind of easy to dodge, as we'll see later on in the video. But the thing that you need to worry about with Forrest is you just don't shoot him. If you shoot him, it's an automatic game over. He's strapped with grenades and it just explodes. So this is one of the more difficult parts of the earlier run. You're gonna summon these dogs from around the corner. This part becomes extremely dependent on the hit stun that you're able to get with the handgun. What you want to do is, if you can, focus on the dog with the collar. I ended up having a pretty terrible run at this right here. There are better strategies that speedrunners use, but I found that this is pinning them on this angle tends to work out pretty well. Luckily, I was able to get him. Don't worry about the second dog. It actually despawns as soon as you go through the door. So what I ended up doing is going here and using these green herbs just to heal myself up, and you can use it too, and then go right back through the door. So I kind of lost my train of thought here, and if you examine the dog collar, you end up getting an imitation of a key, and it's of the armor key, which is needed to access a majority of the doors in the mansion. Unfortunately, that guy is there. I just got grabbed. Just have to watch out for him. So, if you have the canteen, you can try to burn this guy, but he'll get up right away. One of the new mechanics, and this is exclusive to the Resident Evil remake, is the idea of Crimson Heads. And this is if you ever down a zombie, it can come back as a Crimson Head. There are limits to how many will spawn. If you actually kill the zombies in the graveyard, because of it's a boss room, they won't come back as Crimson Heads ever. So if you ever need to like knife them on the stairs, that's something you can do. But using the canteen and stacking zombies was something I was trying for a different playthrough, but I ended up running out of ammo before I got into the dog whistle, and ended up just trying to run through everything for this run. So you want to grab the key and then use the imitation of the key to just get the armor. The real armor key. This hall you can actually access from the beginning of the game, but it's kind of schmuck bait because if you grab the key, you're just screwed. That's a really timely dodge. He will always spawn kind of in that corner after he initially rises from the ground, and you want to do is just spend as little time in there as possible. Again, using the vomit on the stairs to dodge around. So if you heard that rattling, Forrest has now spawned in that hallway. Luckily, he's pretty easy to deal with because we have that long piece of stair, but it can be annoying. So this is the keeper's room. There is some handgun ammo on the bed. You want to grab this, and then this dodge actually turns out to be not so bad. When you turn around, he's initially going to walk out through the closet, and if you're just a little bit in front of the chair, he'll automatically lunge for you. This is fairly consistent. He just tends to be a little bit lunge happy, which is great because we just need to be able to get around him. But that's what you kind of want to do is hug the chair a bit on the left-hand side, and then hopefully he'll lunge and then run around him on the right-hand side. I usually do this room first before completing the puzzle that we're eventually going to do, because without the zombies already and that are about to spawn in the hallway, it just becomes a bit easier. Grab the fake shotgun and the grenade. You can grab the ink ribbons if you want. There's really no hard and fast rule of how often you need to save or how much, but I tended to feel a bit comfortable at this point, especially getting past the dogs and having a not too bad of a start, so I decided to save. So you want to grab the fertilizer from the save room because we're going to need it coming up to be able to do the plant puzzle. This is required that you get the fertilizer here. There's no way around it. If you look at the pipes on the floor, there's a red pipe and a green pipe. If you're able to follow the camera, you can see that the green pipe eventually leads to those green herbs over there, and the red pipe leads to the fountain in the middle of the room. What you want to do is you want to put the weed killer in and then turn the pump to the red, and then just pump it. I just was a little bit too fast and ended up pumping the water before putting the fertilizer in, which I didn't realize would actually work after you put the fertilizer in, but you learn something new. This is your first of the 4 deaths masks. As you're kind of maybe getting the sense that in order to have 4 death masks with Chris, it can be a bit difficult with inventory space. This is one of the reasons why I recommend Jill as first-time players to get through this game, because if you do a little bit of maybe a wrong sequence here or not the most optimized item pickup, then it's a little bit more forgiving, where you don't have to keep making runs back to the inventory box. So the armor key is used on that door in Jill's campaign to get the grenade launcher. You don't necessarily want to go there with Chris. You can get some healing items. But in general, I use the mansion key there in order to trigger its discard later on, which is kind of needed in order to free up an inventory slot to create a shortcut.
You.
Chris Redfield, Alpha Team. We're here to rescue you. Richard, what the hell happened to you? Chris, this place... Get your team out of here. Demons everywhere.
Don't talk. He seems to have been bitten by a poisonous snake, but the size of the bite mark is huge.
It's not just any ordinary snake. Take my word for it.
He needs serum. I left it in another room.
I'll go get it.
Please hurry.
Hold on. I'll be back.
So there's several ways to go about this, but I tend to use the upper floor. What you want to do is you need to get back to the save room on the other side of the mansion. And if you don't do this in time, then Richard dies, which is unfortunate because his assault shotgun that you can get later on in Chris's campaign becomes extremely useful just because it has a larger carrying capacity and has a little bit more damage than the traditional shotgun. I also believe it has a higher decapitation rate, although I have to double check that. So you can kind of see he just lunges like the thirstiest person alive, and it's pretty easy to dodge him just by moving to the along the x-axis rather than the y, and then you're just able to get around him. There is a body there on the floor. It will not rise as a crimson head. You do not need to burn it. Chose this opportunity to deposit the broken shotgun in the death mask. You could have deposited the broken shotgun before. That was just a misfire on my brain. Now what you want to do is use the stairs. You can kind of see his shadow creep around here before he spawns, but like other zombies, he may be fast and cause an instant game over, but he's still susceptible to having vomit on the stairs.
Hope this is what you wanted.
Thank you. I'm gonna give you a shot now, Richard. Hang in there.
Here. Take it. It's a radio. Take care of yourself, Rebecca. Richard!
He's okay. He's just unconscious.
Rebecca, it's not safe here. Let's get Richard to a safer place.
Right. Richard's doing well, Chris. He should recover soon.
Good. Richard needs you now.
As soon as Richard gets better, we'll come after you.
Rebecca, you okay with a gun?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to continue my investigation.
Be careful. Okay?
So we're back under the stairs again. We're going to use the same strategy. Just have Forrest come down, use the vomit, get out of his way. So now that you're back in this area, there's actually going to be a zombie in this hallway. You just want to avoid him by going around the pillar. Kind of see his shadow there. Luckily, he just doesn't trigger for nearly anything, and it's just a simple dodge. Now, this zombie that we're about to cover, we're going to use the small little steps up to the attic where we face Yawn for the first time in order to trigger the gate, get him to vomit, and run around him. Now, this guy will eventually come into this room and make things pretty difficult. This can get a bit hairy on once again because Forrest is now inside of the cabinet. Don't know how I got there, but it's quite a surprise. What you want to do is grab the handgun on the table and then push this, and then ideally you'd want him to get past him and sorry, I'm laughing. Just because of the luck. But if you if you dodge him, you want to get around him and have him keep him in that room. Luckily, I was able to have my push down get those 2 zombies, but if you're part of normal mode, you're just going to encounter a regular zombie, and it's very easy to lure him out and be able to go around the table to get the musical score. It can be a bit difficulty with the 2 zombies, but it's okay if you push, if you use your handgun ammo to knock one down. As you can kind of see, we're racking up bullets, which is fairly good, but unfortunately, we tend to fall into old habits of being conservative, and so that guy just came through the door really quickly. Usually he bangs a bit more on the door before coming through. I decided to kind of do this sequence puzzle. So the sequence there is top right, bottom left, and bottom right, and that'll cause the one on the top left to go straight into place. Now, I end up not grabbing the death mask here because we're going to come back through this hallway after we finish something on the other side of the mansion. And it's just more convenient to grab it at the final stop. Now, unfortunately, I have this zombie that's now spawned inside the hallway, and what I'm doing here is I'm just resetting his position so it'll be easier for me to run around him. I think it's really unfortunate that I had to use my... didn't have to, but I ended up instinctively using my grenade to get that one zombie, and one of the benefits of having Chris's campaign is that the grenade can be used as a quick kill for the first boss. Unfortunately, I will not be showing that due to circumstances, but if you do have your grenade and you do fight the Elder Crimson Head, that is one strategy you can use. So I was mashing my controller to try and break free of the zombie. I accidentally caused that trigger. What we want to do is we want to get past that guy and then be able to get into the music room and create the musical score. What I end up doing after this section is I end up killing that guy. If you kill him too early on, he does come back as a Crimson Head.
It's me, Chris.
Rebecca.
That sounded like Moonlight Sonata.
Can you play? Oh, what was that?
My interpretation is off a little. Let me practice for a while.
Sure. But don't get too carried away.
Oh, I won't.
Run around that zombie if you haven't downed him yet, and this is the final time we're going to actually pick up the bronze emblem. So in order to get to Rebecca to solve the puzzle that Jill can do on her own, you need to go back to the main hall. During this sequence, I decided to take a roundabout trip to the green herb dispensary up where the dog whistle is in order to be able to heal up because I'm in pretty bad shape right now. So this is a shortcut to get back to the main hall. It's not entirely a shortcut because there are times when you're going to need to go back to that hallway after you come back to the mansion and these enemies called hunters have spawned, and you kind of see that there's a big open space near that door, and there's going to be 2 hunters that spawn there. So generally you only want to use that route once, but it's also completely optional. You don't need a key to open that. Also going to use this time to get some shotgun ammo. Take the bronze emblem. And at this stage I got so annoyed with him that I just decided to down him initially. You don't come back down this hallway. You do eventually end up back in that kitchen.
Chris! Chris! I think I got it.
Practice makes perfect.
What's this?
Take the gold emblem, use the bronze emblem in its place. So as you can see, that guy's back up because most of the zombies in this game are extremely spongy. Luckily, we'll not have to come down this hallway again in the sense of going to him. I will end up using the eye to get the shotgun shells really soon. So the solution for this puzzle is the painting on the wall. You want to make sure that the short dagger goes through the chest. The easiest way to do this is to turn the big gear right twice. Luckily, the minute hand is perfectly on the same thing. So now I'm going to go get the shotgun shells. What you want to do is go through the door that the zombie was trying to break through. And you want to make a quick turn to a little alcove to the right. You're going to end up on a door. Luckily, this zombie right here is extremely easy to dodge. He is not triggered very easily and always faces the wall, so you're able to kind of get that turning dodge. So now we're finally going to go back to the attic. That's the door with all the cobwebs in order to fight Yawn for the first time. Fight's kind of a loose word, as there are several things that can happen. One is you're able to run around and get the death mask and then leave. The second is if you have a lot of ammo or one of the infinite ammo items, you are able to dispel Yawn by putting enough damage into him. The one thing you need to be aware of is that if you get bitten here, you will get put into poison, and that will end up putting you back into the save room that we put Richard and Rebecca in initially in order to get something to cure you, because there's no blue herbs in this area. I got a lucky headshot there for that one zombie. But you shouldn't have to deal with that one. You shouldn't bust through the door. So I tend to run around the pillar to kind of get Yawn's head stuck in my tracking, and that way I'm able to run back and go right away around. That was a very clean way of doing it, but that's the way I suggest. Is usually you run around the pillar counterclockwise, grab the death mask, and then go clockwise back through the room in order to get to the door. So now we're finally going to pick up the last death mask, but before we go back to the graveyard to fight the boss, there is a couple things we're going to be doing. One of the ones is we're going to be solving the fishhook puzzle in order to get one of the crests in order to get the magnum in the graveyard. And another thing we're going to be doing is we still need to get our shotgun, because we're not going to have the assault shotgun for a little while longer, and it is quite useful to have the shotgun. Quickly go through that door to avoid being grabbed. then you are able to run around this guy fairly easily. Now, in this room, there's two doors, the one to the top of the antler and the one at the bottom. And the one at the bottom, there's kind of a, what I call like a guest bedroom here. You are able to find an old key here, as well as a green herb and some weapons. Just demonstrating what's in this room. We're eventually going to come back to get the old key, but it's been a while since I played this, so I kind of wanted to remember exactly what the sequence was. Now, unfortunately, when you do come back to this room, a zombie appears, kind of out of nowhere. Luckily, he's pretty easy to dodge, but it is possible for him to open the door and come back into this hallway, and then things just become really hard to deal with. So you might have noticed that there was a little shiny thing on the wall. That's Wesker telling me he left you some supplies. There's a first aid spray, as well as some shotgun ammunition, and I think some handgun ammunition. We're about to find out. So this puzzle is the same for Jill and Chris. What you want to be doing is grab the bee specimen from the lure wall, and then create a lure out of the lure of the bee. You're going to need a hook for it. Do not press that button. Combine the hook with the gold lure to create a complete lure, then put it onto the wall. Now you can push the button. I was debating grabbing that red herb, but unfortunately there's a lot of healing items all over the mansion that you just don't have space for. So it becomes easier just to kind of play well and just get around. Now, I completely messed up here in the sequence. What you want to do is do not deposit the mansion key here. You still need the armor key for one more door. You want to deposit the shotgun shells and take all the death masks and have the broken shotgun. That'll leave you with 2 open inventory slots, which you'll need to be able to swap the items. you may have noticed that the doorknob is about to fall off here. This eventually gets repaired when you come back to the mansion after the aqua ring, but if you use this doorway too much, you'll eventually get locked and have to take a long, dangerous route around. But finally, we can go into Jill's sandwich room and get the shotgun. Now, in Jill's campaign, she can get this the first time you actually come down this hallway without triggering the respawn. Unfortunately, as Chris, we have to take a long way around and get the fake shotgun. If you do not put the fake shotgun in place, you'll get squashed. So I was very fortunate that I was able to dodge that. I did not know where those zombies were going to spawn, but... So kind of hear the creaking, and you can hear Forrest, and I just got extremely in a bad situation here, where I had the zombie immediately come through the door, and now I'm dealing with Forrest and another zombie in that very tight hallway. You will not have to deal with that. I think that I had two, what I'd call unlucky spawns. One was in the upper kind of U-shaped hallway, and one was down there. So what you end up wanting to do here is you want to grab the mansion key and death masks, as well as the old key. I prefer grabbing the old key that's present on the typewriter here, just so you don't have to lug it around your inventory space, because you're going to use it very soon. I think this is also a good time to save, as we're about to come up on the boss. So that guy should not be there, but unfortunately Forrest still will, but it should be a pretty quick way just to get around. Now, this puzzle is fairly straightforward. What you want to do is match the items in the paintings at the far wall where Lisa is to the colors that they correspond to. Got the sequence wrong here. What you want to do is click the one on the far side, and do not click this one and run past it. That way it will turn green. But what you want to do is you want to hit the first painting that comes through right through the door, run around the hallway, and then click the next two. That way it'll be an orange, purple, and a green, which matches Lisa. And if you press the button, it'll open. Now, if you get the sequence wrong, all the crows will start to become hostile, which is extremely unfortunate. But what you want to do is use the old key first to free up an inventory slot, and then grab the death mask. Now, you notice that we're back in the graveyard, but the zombies have despawned. This is something that happens after you get all the death masks. All the zombies will go away, which is great. I usually use this opportunity to grab the shotgun ammo. 12 shotgun shells is more than enough to kill the Elder Crimson Head, and now we're about to fight the boss after some unfortunate menuing to get the masks in place. So if you still have the grenade, this boss can get pretty easy. You just have to make him grab you and then use your defense item, and then it's an automatic win just by shooting him once. Unfortunately, we don't have it anymore, so we're going to be using the shotgun. Unfortunately, I get tagged here a couple times. He's pretty fast, and his range is pretty just aggressive. I got hit 3 times. I thought I was in danger at this point, but the boss is kind of forgiving in terms of his claw damage, and luckily I was only in yellow caution. If you were Jill, with that amount of hits, you probably would have been in orange caution, but with Jill you also get the grenade launcher for this fight, which is a lot easier. Grab the handgun bullets. It's always good to have extra ammo whenever you need it, and then grab the stone and metal object. And right now, we are almost completed with the first part of the mansion. Go back through your shortcut that you created. So unfortunately my dodging is not up to par to get past Forest for one last time, and I incur a pretty bad glomping from this zombie, which puts me into danger. Again, that zombie is not going to be there when you guys play the game, so you don't need to worry about it, but that was just another unfortunate sequence. Luckily, there is a first aid spray here, which I knew about, which is why I didn't go back and heal. It's always good. This is a little bit of like a place where you can get some supplies for the journey up ahead. Some shotgun shells, a grenade that would have been much more useful during the Crimson fight. And the... So you can go through those doors. Unfortunately, you'll realize that you need a crank in order to get past the swimming pool, and that's what we're headed for first. There's going to be 2 roosters that control these Cerberus statues. Order for the gate to open at the bottom. Both of the...
Wesker?
Monster chains. Treat. Not exist. Away from woods outside the mansion.
So the Cerberus gaze locks the gate, and in order to open them, they both need to be facing away. What you want to do is you want to set the red rooster to point west, and the blue rooster to point That graveyard is where you're able to get the Magnum. But we're not going to get it just yet. You heard Lisa in the distance. She is a really tragic character, but one of the more iconic ones of the series. We're now entering Lisa's cabin. This is where you'll get the crank. At this stage of the game, you've pretty much completed part 1 of the mansion. Luckily, I will say that part 1, in my opinion, is the hardest part of the game, and through this point on, it becomes a bit more streamlined, and I wouldn't necessarily say easier, but there's less backtracking and less ways to kind of get stuck in bad situations. So this is a really good spot to save your game, and I'll see you guys in part 2.